Morning, everybody. It is an honor and with deep gratitude that we thank Jim Byron, Chris Nordike, everyone here at the Nixon Foundation for continuing to honor and acknowledge Gold Star families. And what I thought I would do is share with you a little bit about how we got here, because it's an incredible history that didn't just happen over the last couple of years. As Chris said, I am a Gold Star son. My older brother's right there with his camera. We, along with three of our other siblings and our mom, we lost our dad in Vietnam in June of 1965. And so we were one of 58,281 families whose loved ones' names are inscribed on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. And that is a precise number, 58,281. 35 years ago, I was involved in the formation of, surprisingly, what was the first organization in America dedicated to serving Gold Star children. And so in 1989, we formed that organization, Sons and Daughters in Touch, and obviously we were onto something because a couple years later, the Gold Star children, the sons and daughters from World War II, formed the American World War II Orphans Network. And now it's a cottage industry, and I don't say that pejoratively, but it is a cottage industry serving Gold Star families. And so that is an incredible testament to the improvement the nation has made over the years since the end of World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. But the Gold Star term was first used in 1918. And during World War I, Gold Star mothers were encouraged to wear a black armband to signify the loss that they incurred. And then in the 1930s, the federal government paid for those Gold Star mothers and Gold Star wives to sail from New York to Paris so they could see the burial places where their sons and husbands were buried after losing their lives on those foreign shores during World War I. And at that time, other than the black armband, this medallion made by Tiffany, it's not worth as much as some of the other things that Tiffany makes, but this Gold Star medallion was presented to each of those women who got on those sailing ships and traveled from New York to Paris. And they call that the Gold Star Pilgrimage Medallion. And those cruises took place for about 3 years in the early 1930s. But 88 years ago, in 1938, through a Senate resolution, today, the last Sunday in September, was designated as Gold Star Mother's Day. And 13 years ago, President Obama expanded the designation to be Gold Star Mothers and Families Day, and we of course appreciate that. But our history for the acknowledgement and recognition of this day goes back 88 years ago today. In 1947, the Department of Defense was instructed to create an identifier, a symbol, to identify those Gold Star mothers, fathers, and spouses. And that's when this Gold Star lapel button was born, in 1947. I think the designation, when it was expanded to include the children and siblings, was done so because someone realized things could get out of control. And I say that humorously, but if you think back to history, and you've probably seen the service banners that were very popular in World War I, World War II, where the blue star became a gold star when someone's loved one was lost in combat or was lost in the war. The reality there is that that Gold Star service banner, if that was the determinant of who was a Gold Star family, would have created an unintended problem, because businesses, churches, and civic organizations were also permitted to display that banner. And if that was the determinant, then I say this humorously, we would have ended up with Gold Star butchers, bakers, candlestick makers, rabbis, priests, and a whole bunch of other folks. So somewhere in the 1940s, someone realized we need to be more specific and clarify exactly what we're doing here. And so that's the reason why in 1947, the Gold Star lapel button was created and was to be presented to the parents, spouse, siblings, and children of those lost in war. In 1958, there was more clarification that was issued. In August of 1958, it became more specific because the 1947 ruling presented this Gold Star lapel button to anyone whose loved one died during the war, regardless of where they were. And in 1958, August 1st of 1958, it was further clarified that the Gold Star lapel button would be presented to those same immediate family members whose loved ones died on foreign shores, in areas of hostility, or in terrorist acts. And that's the way that the Gold Star lapel button has been ever since then. But interestingly, if you know history, and if you saw the movie We Were Soldiers, which was the movie adaptation of the book We Were Soldiers Once and Young, in 1976, Lieutenant General Hal Moore, who was played by Mel Gibson in the movie, was faced with a challenge. He was asked by the mother of a Navy service member who had died outside of a theater of combat, how do you acknowledge and recognize my child? And General Moore realized that there was something that needed to be done there. He also felt strongly that the Gold Star lapel button needed to retain its connection to combat casualties. And so in 1976, the next of kin lapel button for surviving families was created, and it was retroactive, ironically, to the day that combat troops left Vietnam in 1973. And so today we have two pins, one for those whose loved ones were killed in combat, and one for those surviving family members whose loved one did not die in combat and died from other circumstances. But a couple other things for you. 92% of all of America's Gold Star families received this designation prior to 9/11. 92%. So we are becoming dinosaurs. And you know what? That's a really good thing, because it should be the aspiration of this nation that we have no more reason to present this. There will, because the Department of Defense is 1 million people plus, there will always be circumstances in which someone is going to lose their life. So the next of kin pin, or whatever its iteration becomes in the future, has a purpose and a reason. But again, it should be the aspiration of our nation that we don't have to present this pin any longer. And you know, interestingly, we mentioned the 58,281 names on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, 400,000 plus from World War II, 100,000 plus in World War I, 38,000 in Korea. And did you know that since the end of the Vietnam War, the last 50 years, approximately 15,000, and I don't want to say just because that's insensitive to the 15,000 of them, but America in combat has lost about 15,000 service members. That tells you we're going in the right direction. It tells you we're going in the right direction. And I hope that on this day, Gold Star Mothers and Families Day, we will acknowledge all of those services and sacrifices. They're painful. If I talk about my dad, I'll turn into a waterworks show up here, and so I won't do that. But I do want you to know that from the bottom of my heart, it's wonderful to see all of your faces and all the circumstances that you've all endured, the horrible knocks on the door, and the resilience that you all have in going forward, making something of your life and carrying on the legacy of your loved ones. So thank you all for being here. Again, thank you to the Nixon Foundation and the library for this glorious day. Jim, Chris, everybody else, thank you. And of course, Tim Kepler, I don't know if you guys heard this, but he's going to sing the national anthem at the Angel game right now to conclude the worst season in Angel baseball history. So thank you all very much. Take care. God bless you.